Like cooking, everything has a recipe.
A set of instructions to follow in order to gain a certain result.
Music is no different.
Be it ingredients for a dish, a set list for an amazing show,
Or a release strategy for a successful launch.
these are all recipes.
Hi, we're your hosts, Sean.
And I'm Brandon.
Come and join us in our kitchen as we go through the Music Makers Cookbook.
Let's get cooking.
Welcome to the Music Makers Cookbook, the podcast where we help independent artists cook up recipes for success in the music industry. I am Sean.
I'm Brandon.
Hello, Brandon.
Hello, Sean.
Good to see you today.
Nice to see you.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing all right. We should probably start off by checking up on each other more often than we do.
Yeah.
Just kind of jump in.
You should check in with your family more too. Not you personally, but the listener.
I feel called out right now.
Check in with people. Check in with people. Make sure they're doing well, especially around the holidays.
How do you know what I do with my family?
Oh, I know.
Should I be concerned?
No.
No?
I got it taken care of. No worries.
Okay. Okay, anyways, we've got a good episode. Ignoring all that, the creepy implications that Brandon just gave me.
No, nothing creepy. Just friendly.
Just friendly stalking. Don't worry about it. Ignoring all that, we've got a great episode for you guys today. We're going to kind of be diving into something called Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
It is a structured pyramid where the bottom foundation needs to be fulfilled before you move to the next step of it. And it goes throughout the fulfillment throughout a life of human versus from basic needs to survival to social to whatever. But we're going to we spent some time diving into it and making a similar hierarchy, which is the musician's hierarchy of needs. So as an independent artist, you're going to have to go through this foundation. This is the pyramid towards success in the music industry, at least in a way that a lot of artists have done previously. If you find a way to do it differently than what we have listed out, that's phenomenal. Let us know what your steps to success is. But this is kind of the standard trajectory where you have the foundation, the next layer, and the one underneath has to be completely fulfilled before you move on.
Right. Yeah. That's the significance of it. So like if you have the bottom one and basic needs not met, you can't move on to the next tier, right? Or if you do, it'll be very shaky. You can't build a foundation or you can't build on top of what is not a foundation. That makes sense, right? So we're going to be taking you through this. It's more of a linear path, like more so I would say, although like you could probably make the argument that sometimes like you could put this here, put that there. So it's all within reason, I guess, with how you define it. But for the most part, this is pretty concrete. One thing leads to the next. And that's what we're here to illustrate for you, just in terms of a musician and an artist.
And here's a quick story explanation, kind of highlighting what it actually means, the importance of it, by completing the task below before you can tackle the task above. The story is, if you're in a boat that has a hole in it and it's taking on water and the boat is slowly starting to sink, and you have a bucket, you're trying to bail the water out to get all the water out of the boat so the boat stays floating. Well, if the hole is still left in the boat, it's going to keep taking on water no matter how much water you get out of the boat. Even if you're insanely fast, you're able to keep it completely dry, there's still the hole, water is still coming in. So order of operations dictates that you're going to want to plug the hole before you completely try bailing the water out. Otherwise, it's going to keep coming in. So filling the hole in the boat so that it no longer takes on water is the foundation below bailing the water out.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's great. I mean, I love that story. I think it's the best way to illustrate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In full transparency, I completely said it less eloquently and took it from the Six Figure Home Studio podcast. Chris Graham said this.
Six Figure Creative, Sean?
Well, not at the time.
Not at the time. You're right.
Not at the time.
You're right. Before they rebranded.
And if you look back, I think they still have the old artwork on the
do
older
they?
episodes.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So until they rebranded, it's still labeled as Six Figure Home Studio on the podcast.
Nice.
So
great podcast. Love that. Love that podcast. So good.
For sure. So that kind of illustrates, you got to fulfill the foundation before you move on.
Yeah. Very important. Very important. And that's what we're going to illustrate for you guys today. So do you want to start off with the first tier? Or do you want me to start off?
I'm just going to quickly run through, and I'm going to list all the tiers real quick.
Oh, okay.
But then we're going to dive more deep into it.
Sure.
So the basic foundation, and by the way, if you are listening to this and you have the ability to, like you're on your phone, or you're on your computer, and you have the ability to open up another window or look at something while you listen, we are going to create a graphic for this episode that visually illustrates what this hierarchy of needs is, what this pyramid looks like. And we're going to put together a blog article or two on one or both of our respective studio websites that you can go and you can read along, get more detail, more structured detail as well. That's going to be linked into the description of this episode. So check that out. Open up the visual representation if you want to follow along with us. But the foundation of being successful and building a career in the music industry is to be a musician.
Yes. Yes.
That is the
That's
basic
key.
foundation. That's the
Yeah.
bare bones.
That's a good one. That's a good one. It's a good start.
Yep. Or right above that is earning an income, starting to earn an income with it. Above that is building into a career. We'll go into what that necessarily entails. Above that, the fourth layer is being an artist. And then the last level of having a successful career as a independent artist in the music industry is stardom and a mentorship.
Yeah.
That's the very top of it. And that's able to be fully fulfilled and all that. So kind of going back down, the very basics, please stick with us if you're listening. It might sound completely like you're probably past this point. So this section may not be entirely for you, but
Yeah.
I mean, you got to be a musician, right?
Yeah, you do. Real quick, before we go into it, just real fast, if you are looking at the Maslow's hierarchy of needs on your computer at this point, we're not using the same framework that they establish, like basic needs, security, and safety or whatever.
Yeah.
We've kind of modified that to make it fit with what we're talking about today and put in more of a musical term. I just want to put that out there real quick. So if you're trying to align our sections with those, they will not. They will not. So
unless you go to our blog post or our social media, we're gonna create one specifically for
right.
the musicians.
I just want to make sure that the titles won't be like, oh, this doesn't make sense here. It's like, okay, yeah. So yeah, first one, being a musician. That's a really good start. You have to have some form of musical ability that you've established or you are looking to establish. So I would say taking lessons also kind of falls under this. Just as long as you get bit by the musical bug. And man, I'm praying for you if you did, because you're going to play life on hard mode. But it's fun though. It's very fulfilling if you can reach that part of the fulfillment. I mean, even while we were going through all this, I think you and I have mentioned too that you can be fulfilled at any stage of this pyramid right here.
It depends what you're looking for.
It depends on what you're looking for in music. So that's our first caveat really of the day, is that it all depends on what your goals are. And we've talked about setting your goals before, but for the general consensus, we're going to focus on becoming the top tier artist. This is what we want to do with our lives. We want to make a lasting impact. So we start here with basic musicianship.
Exactly. Like, yeah, you can be fulfilled at any level, like you said, depending on what your goals are. But this is for making a living in the music industry, being a capital A artist, fully. Like, this is your goal, what you aim to do. You want to make a difference with your music.
Yep.
So yeah, what is it? What does it mean to be a musician? What do you have to? Yeah. First, what do you have to have down?
First, you have to like music. That's really cool. Like, based just like right off rip. Like I said, you have to establish some sort of musical ability, whether or not you have that already, if you're born with a natural gift, or you're self-taught, or you get lessons from somewhere, you're taught in college, doesn't matter. You have to establish some form of musical ability there. You also have to have access to equipment and space. And we're not really talking like a full-fledged recording studio, 90 amps on the wall, anything like that. We're talking like a guitar, an amp, or an acoustic guitar, or whatever instrument you're playing. You have to have something to play and a space to play it. I think that's the most basic need. There's nothing beyond that you actually necessarily need. There are more tools of it you can get later, but we're not talking about those. Yeah. Very unsexy stuff.
And the space he's referring to, it can be anything from a bedroom to a living room,
basement.
I mean, even just like the hallway of a school or
garage, practice room at school.
Yeah.
Yep. Anything that you have access to equipment to, or you can use to practice and play.
Yeah.
Yep. And then the next one that we put under here is also good health, right?
This doesn't necessarily fall under being a musician, but this is definitely a foundational thing that needs to be taken care of before you go any further. You have to have good health before you can move on, because building a career, as you mentioned, it's hard mode. There's a lot of things you have to do and a lot of things you have to overcome and a lot of strategies you got to try, recipes you have to cook and things to implement. And if you can't physically or mentally do that, then you're not going to be able to move on to using your music to earn an income, developing as an artist and so forth. So health, very, very important.
I think health is like a good illustrator for what happens if you try to move on and onto the next stage, and then you have to keep returning back to the bottom of the foundation. Like your foundation keeps cracking, right? You're always going to have to return and fix that. So that means that when you get to that next tier, you're taking away from that next tier that you could be adding if your health is in order. And of course, there are some things with health that we can't control. There are some variables there that are really tough. And obviously, I'm not a doctor or anything, but you just have to learn how to be able to overcome it and then manage it. And that's a lot easier said than done, So whatever your situation is, just make sure that you're doing what's best for yourself and setting yourself up for success later.
Yeah. Very well said.
Thank you.
So once you've done that, you are a musician, you've been writing some songs, have a place where you've been practicing, You're starting to be like, yeah, I love music. I want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
The next level is starting to use music as a tool to earn income.
Yeah.
Make money with it. This is recording and releasing music. That's really one of the first steps to it. Now, you can spend time and money to go into a professional recording studio and try to grab, learn the whole process and get a great sounding song right off the bat. Or you can take other kind of steps towards it. You can record your own demos, mess around with your own tools, build a home studio.
Yep.
Even, recording demos on your phone and putting it to SoundCloud for people to listen to and get reviews, feedback on it. Doing things like if you are starting to perform live in spaces like that, ask the sound guy to kick you a bounds of the performance, and you can put that on Bandcamp or something like that. People can buy from it and you can get feedback on that. But just somehow getting your music out there and earning money based off of it. But there's a bunch of different income sources that you can do to earn money with your music as the forefront once you have it recorded and you are starting to release the music.
Yep, absolutely. And like what Sean said is like, this is the part where you start putting out music, right? You start releasing music. So this actually entails establishing some kind of knowledge about that process. I had that actually written down on my pyramid right here. I had it written down for the first tier, but I think understanding musical equipment or recording equipment is a basic skill that you need at this point if you want to do something like that, especially if you're doing it on your own. But it also helps in the studio later on. So if you do hire a professional studio, you can communicate your ideas more fluently. So I would say that this is also like the area where you kind of start establishing that technical know-how moving forward. And then I want to go on to the next one, the next point at this tier. Yeah.
Well, and just real quick, any part of this pyramid, you're going to be learning new skills along the way. So education always is prominent there because to move on, you're learning new things, you're trying new things. So as Brandon said, it's very important.
Sean and I did discuss beforehand too. We put these topics, these points, these bullet points at each tier at the lowest tier that they could apply to. So that way, like Sean was saying, this builds on top of each tier. So these points go up the ladder as we go up the ladder, right? This is when you're establishing these points. I keep saying points.
Well, back to like the boat episode, just because you plugged the hole and you got all the water out, you still got to make sure that hole is plugged. Yeah. If the hole becomes unplugged again, you're right down to the bottom. So once you graduate from one level to the next level, it doesn't mean like all of a sudden I'm done. I don't have to worry about this anymore. The way the hierarchy works is it is a hierarchy. You must maintain the foundation before, as you keep building upon it. If the foundation cracks, the whole thing could collapse. So just because we're saying, oh, learn these new skills, oh, do this new thing, oh, this is the focus now, you still have to keep the effort to maintain the bottom of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that's what you were trying to say.
Yeah, basically. Yep.
Boom.
And like
I can read your mind, Brandon.
And like even that, right, is like you have to do all this before you start rowing back to shore, right? And like once you get back to shore, you're safe. So that's the ultimate goal, I think, at the end, unless you're living on a boat.
I'm on a boat.
Then you might have different aspirations. Are we gonna get DCMA'd for that?
For aspirations?
No, for I'm on a boat.
I'm on a boat? I mean, we're on a boat. You don't know that.
We might be on a boat.
We might be on a boat.
Might be on a boat.
Yeah. I mean, is it wrong to say I'm on a boat?
No.
Earth is a boat in
You
space.
did it in a musical way, though. That made me refer back
I'm on a boat.
What's the next word?
That's monotone. Come on, man.
It was rhythmic. It was rhythmic.
Everything's rhythmic.
Depending on how you look at it.
That's true. And I look at it as everything's rhythmic.
That's
I also
really
look at
nice.
it as everything. We're on a boat right now.
You've established your musicianship at tier 1.
I've never progressed past that. I'm barely tier 1.
I haven't even made it to tier 1 yet. So the next point that we have under starting to earn an income is financial stability. And this one is like
hold on. You kind of skipped one there.
What?
Yeah, we talked about, recording and releasing music, but once you
said
record and
multiple
release your
income
music,
sources.
I did, but I didn't dive into exactly what they were.
Go ahead and dive into them.
Well, I was trying to tee you up for it. Anyways, I thought you were going to highlight things. We're squabbling right now. So once you release your music, there's multiple ways you can make money from it. You can start doing live gigs. You can start getting streaming royalties. Once you have a good polished product, you can put through DistroKid or Bandcamp or CD Baby, and get on these platforms where people can listen to it, and you get some small amounts of money back for people listening to it or buying it on iTunes. You can get merchandise sales if you are performing live gigs where you're able to bring merchandise. It's more than just an open mic, like a full venue. Maybe make some shirts, some hats, some coffee mugs, whatever it is you want to do. You can make some income on that. But the music is the foundation of all of that. You have to have the songs and have the interest and build it up to the point first where then that becomes a viable way to keep people interested to want to buy these things or invest their time in what you're doing. But those are the very, very basic ways to start making income with your music.
Yeah. Honestly, the best way to do it is through live gigs. Those typically pay pretty well. You might have to do a few like kind of pro bono at first just to kind of establish anything or just do like those coffee house kind of open mics that help establish your like gigging routines. And but honestly, live gigs is one of the best way to kind of supplement income by doing music. It's great.
Oh, I completely agree. And if you're at that point now where you're just starting to look into doing live shows, or if you want to take your live shows to the next level, we have a whole series, episode 11 through episode 17, where we talk about live music and the steps from the start all the way to the end, what to do after the show as well as before the show. We kind of broke it down. That's why it's 7 episodes. So you can check that out to learn more information about that if that's where you are at. But as you mentioned, that's a good way to make money with it. What's the next thing under earning an income?
The next thing.
Finally.
Financial stability. And we don't mean like you're covering your entire life through music. That is really difficult to do, especially when you're only at the second tier of this pyramid right now. But we mean enough to cover the music expenses that you're incurring, maybe even breaking even. And if you have a little bit of surplus, that's a big bonus to you at this point, I would say. So when we say financial stability, we don't mean this is your career now. Congratulations. You can afford a house. You can afford this, blah, blah, blah.
Success. You've done it.
And if you're able to do that at this point, wow, that's awesome. Congrats to you. But we're kind of taking it as you're going to break even with your music at this point. You're supplementing what you put into it through your gains while you're working, whether it's gigs, whether you're putting out music or not.
Yeah, the venue is going to pay you enough to cover the gas to get there and back.
Exactly.
Things like that.
Yep.
And the more you do it, the more you build up. Then if you build an audience and you get more merch, well, then that's going to now be a little bit extra on top. And as that starts to grow, then we go into the next part of it. But we still have something left on this tier of earning income. It's a good one. And that is building a support network. It's imperative that you start building that at this early stage, as early as possible. In fact, you can kind of do it in the first stage, but this is where it really becomes imperative, especially as you mentioned, if you're taking lessons to learn how to be a better musician, your teacher's probably a musician who's doing stuff. That's a connection there. If you're going to school for it, there's other students at the school. Like we went to Schoolcraft for sound recording technologies, and there was a bunch of artists there. Well, you went to U of M for music, and there's a bunch of artists there, I'm assuming.
Absolutely. Yeah. Lots of performers there.
Yeah. So things like that, just building connections can start even earlier, but here's where you really need to go all out. And it's not just fellow musicians. You also want to find mentors, other people in the industry that can give you feedback or insight on what to do next. Industry contacts for guidance and supports and opportunities, like venue owners or people who, like, we brought up their bands earlier, but even on top of that, maybe you find people who have blog articles or do podcasts or interviews for local radio stations or whatnot. Or even on top of that, for opportunities and such, you can try to start building contacts with studios and whatnot to be like session musicians or other things you can do to grow and build, or even try to contact people who work for labels or sync licensing or whatnot. Just get your feelers out there. If someone does something in the industry, be friendly with them. This is time to start talking and get your name out there.
Absolutely. I mean, I want to go on a soapbox for a second. The word network sucks. Like, that's a shitty word. And like a lot of people get turned off when they hear that. It's very businessy and it feels very transactional.
Did I say network?
Just support network in general.
Oh yeah, we did.
But it's the best way to frame it though, right? Because everybody knows what networking is, right?
That's true.
So if you don't want to view it like that, just say community, right?
I was going to go with a completely wrong
what were you gonna say?
Suggestion. I was going to say start gathering ingredients, but I don't really want to refer to people as ingredients.
Gather more cooks. Yeah. And even
stock the kitchen with chefs.
Yes. Yeah. Like just create friends in the industry, right? Create friends that are fellow musicians.
Yeah.
That's what I kind of view it as, because it is very community based. And when you start saying like, oh, I got to go out and network, I got to go do this, it's like, oh, it's kind of yucky at some point, you know? And like, that's not what music's about. And I think the only reason why I'm saying this is because I just listened to The Go-Giver. And The Go-Giver, we should definitely do a I think we've talked about doing a podcast episode on the Go Giver
on the book.
specifically. And this book will give you that framework to kind of work with. Same with How to Win Friends and Influence People. Shitty sounding book title. We've mentioned that before. But
such a good book.
It's a great book though. And it's not malicious. It's not transactional. So if you heard, oh, I have to go out and network, that really just means create friends. Meet people, talk to people, and share value with each other.
Yeah. Because here's the thing, like, as you mentioned, networking implies that if they can benefit you, then you need to be in contact with them.
Exactly.
So let's say there's a venue owner that has a really cool venue and you'd like to play there, but you really don't like the guy, or you really don't get along. You don't need to, be fake or act a way that you think that they want to see you as to get in there and get working. There's plenty of people out there who you will form genuine connections with, and genuine connections is what build up to these opportunities where people think of you because they like you. Liking is one of the levels of influence, which we'll cover later. And liking someone and you liking them builds a stronger relationship, a working relationship where you can do more in the future. So as you said, don't go out and be inauthentic to build these relationships, to network so that you have these people you can potentially do stuff with. And if you don't want to go any further than that, like let's say, oh, this is a great venue, but I don't like the guy, then you can just be like, it's strictly a working relationship.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to go one way or another. Just, hey, I'd like to play your venue. That's it. And if it's no, great, try again later or whatnot. Yeah. But there are plenty of people who, oh man, I like talking to this guy. This guy not only can help me, or girl, but they're fantastic to talk to and work with. So I'm going to go a little bit above and beyond and put effort into maintaining this relationship more so than just, hey, what can you do for me? Or what can I do for you? Make friends, be authentic. And, treat them like people and hope they treat you the same way. It's about the people. So
exactly. No, well said. Very well said. Move on to the third one.
Yep. Move on to the third one.
We're going to build this into a career.
Woo! Finally at that point.
Congratulations, guys.
It's your career now.
That's fantastic. Now what?
Oh man, you picked the perfect time to pause to me.
I did.
As soon as you said now what, I had to burp. Anyways, so to build us a career, there are certain, once again, as before, there are things you got to start doing to fulfill this tier of the hierarchy of needs. The first one that we think is prevalent in all of these is doing education, but it's really important here to start enhancing your skills and knowledge through education, workshops, experiences, videos, whatever it may be. Now is the time to really start digging in because there's a lot more stuff you're going to have to do. I'm not going to talk, we're going to revisit this more at the end of places you can go at the end of this section, but some of the things that you're going to need to be doing in this section is things like legal protection, understanding and securing the rights to your music, knowing whether it's writing credits or whether you own the masters or not, or if the label owns the masters.
Knowing how to do split sheets.
If you're using samples, where they come from, what rights you have to those samples, especially if you're going to try to do sync licensing. Having contracts, like how to form a contract, how to put it down in writing, how to make a paper trail. So if there's multiple people involved, you can have like, this is a document that communicates how much everyone owns of what, how to communicate that beforehand, copyrights, legal contracts, all that, and protecting yourself from it. Because now is the point where you are trying to make, well, not you're trying to, you've made some money. Now you're building into a business, a career, and it has to be sustainable to cover all of your expenses, not just your musical expenses. And educating yourself and setting up legal protection needs to be done in this step. You're building a career.
Totally agree. Yep. That's a great one because a lot of people don't understand how the music industry works a lot of the time. And the more that you know going into it, the more that you can kind of navigate through it and kind of sift through the bullshit sometimes. But not only that, it also makes these things easier in the long run too, because you won't have to go back and forth on, oh, I need to learn this before I go to this meeting, or I need to learn this, or what does this mean? What does this actually mean for me? Right. And getting somebody that's on your side all the time, like a lawyer, is just so nice to have because like they can do more than just be a lawyer. They also have contacts themselves. Right. So you have to find a good one that you can have a good working relationship with and hopefully have on retainer at some point. That would be really nice. That's like ultimate goals is to get somebody on a retainer that you can go to whenever you need that. But at the very least, you have to start learning how this stuff works, what you can and can't do, and protect yourself along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause there's plenty of horror stories of people who, like, I was listening to an interview on Ari Hershtan's How to Make a New Music Business podcast. I forget who was interviewing, but she worked in sync licensing and she was saying how there was this one band that had this manager from when they first started all the way up to when they're starting to get big. And eventually they grew too big for what the manager could do. So they, decided to let him go. They voted to let him go. But they felt bad for him. So they gave him 1% of the publishing rights. Just as like, you'll make some money on the songs in the back end. What they didn't realize is that when they went to license their songs for play on on commercials or TV or all that stuff, everyone who owns anything in the song has to verify that and give their approval for it to go to licensing. And this manager now owned 1% and he vetoed everything.
Oh, wow.
So he single-handedly stopped them from getting any of the songs that they gave him partial ownership of licensing. So it's just be very, very careful.
Brutal.
Brutal.
Yeah.
These things can happen. So just be smart. Try to protect yourself. Know what you own, what you don't, how to get ownership. Make sure you have if you don't own it, keep all the contact information down, how easy it's going to be to get their approval so that when you do expand down the line, as you grow, you're going to want to use it in multiple locations and expand. Make sure you know everything it is about the song.
And like, let's face it, that stuff's not easy to even communicate. So you're going to also learn how to communicate really well and how to not piss people off along the way, because you can burn bridges this way. Like, realistically, I wrote 40% of the song, you wrote 15%, and then the bassist wrote 30%, and then whatever adds up to 100 right there, because that does not add up to 100, but whatever. You're going to have to communicate that with somebody that only wrote that 15% and make that and have them understand, like, why are they only getting 15%?
Yeah.
Where usually in a band, it feels like, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, right? Like five-way split.
Yeah.
That's not always the case. And like, I think you are entitled to what you have contributed to the song, unless it's previously spoken about.
Yeah.
So this is also a good place to kind of learn how to deal with that and like set boundaries in advance. So when you go to write something, you get the understanding that I'm only getting 20% of this, but I'm still giving it my 100% effort.
Yeah.
But you have to understand that going into it. Can't piss people off along the way. And you're going to learn that in this year.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
And there's ways around it. Like kind of you said, like if you hire on a songwriter to help you polish out a song, you could try to, up front, like, hey, I'll pay you this amount of money to help polish a song. So you don't own any rights to it afterward. You get a credit, but you don't have rights to it.
Yep.
There's things you can do to try to, you're going to figure this all out, but this is the point where you're going to start learning these. And if you don't, you're going to have someone on your team that can help you understand it and implement these things for you.
Yeah.
I just said like lawyers or whatever.
Exactly. Don't kill me. I'm going to move on to the next one real quick.
Do it.
And it's not one that's actually up next.
Go for it.
I added this just a second ago.
Yeah.
You have to know how to do accounting and taxes. If not, you have to hire somebody to do that. That's crucial at this stage. You could probably get away with it at stage 2, although the sooner you do this, and that's what I recommend, the more hassle you can save yourself in the long run, the more opportunities you award yourself in the long run, and actually the more that you can kind of see your growth in the long run, right? So the sooner you actually establish this, the better. But this is a must do at this stage in the game. You have to learn what taxes entail. You do have to know. You can't just send it off to an accountant. Like, you should know how the taxes work generally, and then have the accountant major in his majors, right? We talked about majoring in majors, but you should also know how to do accounting, whether that's, more so mental accounting, or maybe writing it down into a spreadsheet, or using some kind of app that helps you keep track of your expenses and your gains along the way, your profits along the way, and being able to average that out and seeing what the trajectory is, how you're doing, where you're spending, how much you're spending in what area, whatever the case may be. And it'll make your life a lot easier in the long run too, because then, like I said, you can actually track that growth and you get accustomed to the discipline of doing so.
Oh yeah, because analytics are crazy important to see what's working, what's not working. So you're going to want to keep track and write down all this information anyways, especially if you're doing merch, what's selling the most, what's not selling, what's not moving, what's popular online versus what's popular at the concerts, things like that. You want to have the inventory, how much you're making, how much the costs are, all of that set up.
Yep.
Not even necessarily for taxes, but just so you know how to be most efficient with your merch so you can make more money with it. But that also really, really helps when you're paying taxes. So just kind of, talk to whoever's doing your taxes and be like, okay, well, what's the information I can give you that would be best helpful? Talk to them, ask some questions, do some research on what can I write off? What can I write off?
Yep.
How do I have to present it in a way? How do I have to keep track of it in order that I can write it off and be safe and be protected? How much should I be setting aside so that I can pay the taxes afterwards? Like what's a good ratio to set up?
And we don't have those answers for you. That's something you're going to have to ask your accountant, right? Yeah. So this is not legal or tax advice at all. So
No, but in this stage, you are going to
run into
asking
that.
for legal
100%.
and tax
That's exactly.
advice.
Yep. That's what we're setting you up to do. So go find somebody. Yeah. Yep.
Another thing that's very imperative in this step is as you're building it into a career, you're going to be cultivating a fan base through social media, performances, networking, building an audience of people who are invested in your music, want to show up consistently, are willing to support you, are willing to give you money for their time, for your product, for what you're putting out there. This is the growth stage.
Yes.
We had an episode about the seasons of music making. I'll pull that up in a second. But what this basically is it's the growth period of yourself as an artist, of expanding as much as possible, getting as much people to know of your music as possible, try to come up with fun ways for people to share, interact with the people, just grow as much as possible.
Yeah.
I've said that like 3 times, but that's because the more people you have eyes on you, the more things you're going to be able to do moving forward. If you're able to have 200 to 500 people come to your shows or are interested in what you're doing, well, now you can play in larger venues. If you play in larger venues, you can then open up for bigger acts. If you open up for bigger acts, that's more people who can become aware of your music. And then that grows in turn. And that's the upward momentum of it. And also like on social media, some things that we're starting to learn is we recently had a TikTok post that we had completely blow up. It's currently at, I think, 280,000 plays. It's going a little slow right now, so I can't pull up the exact number. Yeah, 286,000 plays at the moment of us recording this. And it's taken us from like 20 followers to like 760 followers.
Yeah, definitely a big win.
Once you hit 1,000 on TikTok, you're able to start like putting in your own links on the videos. And there's other features that are unlocked once you get to that number. Same thing with YouTube. Once you hit a certain number, you're able to start monetizing the channel, which gives you extra sources of revenue income. The larger it gets, now it's more enticing for. We have a whole episode about, let me pause a little bit. We have a whole episode about social media, growth and whatnot, and about vanity metrics, about what's important and what's not important. That being said, vanity metrics can be useful when trying to collaborate with other people to get people to cover you because they can see that, oh, there's at least eyeballs on this person. If we do something with them, other people will see it. Obviously, like engagement and all that plays more of an importance, but having these numbers increasing do allow you to do more things.
Yeah.
So this is the point of hard sprint. Get as many people as possible so that you can open as many doors as possible.
Absolutely. And, you know, this is like one of those things too, like cultivating is a very loaded word. It could mean a lot of things. And you might be thinking at home, that's like, okay, well, at this stage, I have to get a fan base. So what am I just going to go out and get one? Well, you're kind of cultivating one along the way of your journey so far, right? It starts with your warm, natural market around you, and then you spread out to the cold kind of stuff where you're playing in front of people you don't know. That's awesome. You're meeting people you don't know. That's great. You're having phone calls with people you don't know. Awesome. Good stuff. Your friends are referring people to you, whatever the case may be, right? This stage also entails you starting to nurture your audience as well, learning how to interact with them, what they like, what you can do to give them value in return for them coming to see you and supporting you. So that it's a very loaded point that I think that we made here, and there's a lot that encompasses it. So like what Sean said, it's a hard sprint at this point, and you're going to be putting in a lot of time learning how to interact with people, how to cultivate that relationship and take it to the next level. And I'm not even saying necessarily monetize off of them, because that comes with what you're doing along the way. Like if you're giving them value, the value will return onto you. Yeah. I have listened to this book too much. Too much, Sean. I think that's principle 4. But so
true. If someone becomes aware of your music and uses your album or your single or whatever it is to get through a hard time, then they are going to have emotional and mental ties to what you're doing. You've given them value. You've helped them in their life. Now there's the law of reciprocity. Yep. The law of reciprocity. Which is
the 5th one, I think, actually.
Yep. Yeah. The law. I've read the book too, man. The law of reciprocity states that when you give somebody something, they feel inclined to return the favor and give you something back. And the more people you're able to get in front of, the more your music is able to help these people. And the more you help people with your music, the more they're going to want to give back in return as thanks, because they feel that they've done so much for me and I've not done anything for them. I need to return the favor. I need to go to their live show when they come
Yes.
when they come into my city. I need to buy the album on vinyl when it comes out. I need to, follow them on Instagram and share their posts with all my friends because man, this really helped me. It's going to help them as well.
Yep. And you might be thinking, well, that's dumb because like I don't want to take from people. I want to give my music. I want to give value. Well, guess what? And the last chapter and the last principle, you're going to learn how to receive. Okay. We're going to do a whole podcast episode
All
about
on
this
that book,
because it's a great book. Go listen to The Go-Giver by Bob Berg and John David Mann because damn, it's eye-opening. So you will learn if you listen to the book. You will learn.
You'll learn.
All right.
You will learn from this book.
I just wanted to say that. It's such a good book. I love talking about it. It's a great book.
But no, it's true though.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is, I don't want to take things from people. If you're expecting them to take your music from you and take what you're putting out there, but you don't want to receive anything from them, how backwards is that?
Yep. And the book talks about that.
Exactly.
It actually mentions that too, which is great. Dude, like, I'm telling you.
I briefly mentioned this in audience building and growth and whatnot. But another thing is collaboration is huge at this point.
Yeah, and you did mention that too.
I did mention that, yeah. So that's another thing you're going to be doing at this point. You're going to be contacting other musicians to have them sit in on your shows or open for their music or have them open for you. You're going to be collaborating with other content creators to have your song underneath their content. Like there's TikTok, short form video marketing now at this point where you can have your music underneath their shorts or their videos. There's collaboration with people who work creating content like blogs or interviews like podcasts or whatnot. I've mentioned that before, but it's not just collaborating of, I'm going to feature this person on my song or I'm going to be featuring that song. It's way bigger than that.
Yeah.
Way bigger than that.
Yeah.
Collaboration is just doing shit with other people.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is one of those, I feel like measuring tools that you can kind of use along the way that if you don't fulfill the tier before this or the tier before that, you'll know. You'll know that you haven't because when you reach out to somebody to collaborate, they will do an audit on you, most likely, unless they like your music and they like you as a person. If it's strictly transactional, that's what I'm kind of talking about. You're reaching out on Instagram, you don't know them, whatever. Hey, you want to collab on this? They will do a deep dive on you. And if they say no, that could be a good indicator that you don't have something fulfilled up to this point. Yeah. However, that's not always an indicator. Like correlation does not imply causation. Maybe there's something else. Maybe they don't vibe with your aura. It's not good branding on their end. Whatever. You said something in the past, got canceled, and were reborn. I don't know. It could be anything. But this is actually a pretty good measuring tool, though, that I would say that it could be like, oh, my blank is not up to snuff. Maybe I need to build this up before I reach back out. Or maybe they even tell you that. Maybe they're like, hey, reach out to me in 6 months. We'll talk.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a decent measuring stick at this point. That this is kind of like one of those areas that it's like, oh, I can kind of take the temperature and see how I'm doing along the way.
Yeah, for sure. And you can use the same thing yourself. You can be like, okay,
it's almost like peer review.
Yeah. Do I want to collaborate with this person? Are they on par with me? Are they beneficial? Am I beneficial to them? Whether you're beneficial to them or not, that's a huge thing to look for as well.
Yep.
There's plenty of people we would love to have on this podcast.
Oh,
but
man,
until
very
we
much
grow
so.
more,
Yeah.
we don't provide much value to a lot of these bigger names because we haven't grown and we haven't established ourselves as much as necessary in order to work with these higher tier people. So like follow, subscribe, do all that stuff so that we can do that and give you better interviews and better podcasts and yada, yada, yada. But that's something you can keep track of yourself. And if you have the goal of, man, I just want to work with this one artist, man, I'd love to feature on a track with this person. Well, now you've got a goal. Okay, well, how can I work this out? Episode 6, SMART goals, plan out how to do this. By the way, episode 20 is our episode about seasons, about growth season and whatnot. So check that out too. Man, our catalog is getting pretty big now.
It's hefty, man. It's hefty.
Yeah, over half of a year, we're getting there.
Wow.
But yeah, it's just, you can use it as a tool for yourself. Like who's asking to work with me? Because if these people are asking to work with me, then that's the level they think I'm at.
Exactly.
Things like that. How do I move beyond? Is this good or is this not? What? It just said it's a good way to look at your surroundings and decide how you want to move forward.
Most definitely.
I'm going to move on to the next one real quick.
Please.
You cool with that?
Please.
So we briefly mentioned, like I said in legal protection, that you're going to have other people involved. We can't give you all the information right now. I mentioned in audience building, if you're doing social media, networking and whatnot, you can utilize other people to help expand yourself on these platforms. You don't have to take care of all of it yourself. With collaboration, same thing. Accounting, taxes and all that. This is the main this is the point where you're really going to be expanding your team. And it's not just band members or people like that or roadies or people who are actually doing music. It's way bigger than that. Expanding your team includes lawyers, tax consultants, managers, promoters, videographers, photographers, media managers, sync licensing agents, maybe a label, or if you want to sign with a label, studio, live engineers, people who you know have a good work relationship with you so you can always go back there and they can give you good advice, or where you make all your music so you have that sound. This is the point where you start putting all of that together and bringing more people in, because not only are you building this into a career, you're building this into a business. And there's a lot of people who need to be involved to allow you to just focus on what you need to focus on, major in your majors, minor in your minors. So this is the point where you really start bringing other people in, and it can be fun because now you're able to get more stuff done in a shorter period of time because it's not all on you, but it can also be very dangerous if you bring on the wrong person, sign the contract with the wrong crew. That's why it's really important to bring a lawyer in so that you can have them read over things like that. It's a very fun, quote unquote, process of, it's exciting, but also, man, it can be dangerous if you go too fast. Speed is very beneficial. You know, get things done fast is not a bad thing. But at the same time, you got to keep yourself safe, protect yourself, and not get into bed with wrong people.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a great way to say it, because you do have to learn what to do and what not to do at this point, right? You have to learn what you're looking for. You have to learn the warning signs of somebody that might be toxic that you're letting in, even mentally toxic, right? Like, you might have the world's best accountant, but if he's treating you like shit, that could actually, like, I mean, would an accountant treat you like shit? Let's say a manager, right? Let's do that's a little bit better, right? If your manager is
or promoter
putting your doubts in your head, or saying, don't do this, do that, you know, that can be enough. But he could be the best manager in the world, right? So this,
at the end of the day, I'm just gonna say, at the end of the day, you are the artist. They work for you.
Absolutely,
it is your art. It is you as a capital A artist who is the product, who is the showcase, who is the importance of everything you're doing. They work for you. So, you know, get good feedback and be like, okay, cool. I appreciate you saying I can't do this. I'm disregarding it because I think I can.
Absolutely.
So just be strong there.
You have to be strong and kind of steadfast in what you want to do and what you believe in as an artist. I think it's a beautiful way to say it. I think I want to illustrate this real quick. We're going through in the way that we talked about tier 2. The last thing that we talked about was developing a network of people. Well, this one, we're talking about building a team of people, and how you're going to build that team of people is through the network of people you know and you've met over this period of time so far.
You see how it stacks?
So now we're stacking. We're seeing that cumulative effect of stacking along the way, and actually sets us up into the next tier really well, because once you have this this team of people, you can do these next things really well, which would be becoming an artist or establishing yourself as an artist, right? This is all encompassing of what you're supposed to do with a team of people. First things first, personal branding. If you don't know how to brand yourself, hire a team of people that can do that with you. Not for you, with you.
Yeah. And then that's why we put artist after build a career, because an artist is the next level of that. The artist is a brand. It's its own thing. That's the music is now a part of that. It's not like, man, I love this album. It's, man, I love this artist. It is the next level. And we're going to dive into more exactly what that means, but that's why it's the next step. You might think like, man, well, I should be focusing on branding and identifying who I am, like really early on in it. Yes, you should be consistent early on, but until you have all that down, being an artist fully cannot be fully achieved until you have all this behind you.
Absolutely.
That you as an artist is the main thing being pushed, not necessarily the music. So I just wanted to say that's why we put it afterwards. You may be thinking, you know, hey, artists can go up earlier, or we talk about branding and all that all the time. Like in episode 2, we talk about it and how it's important to be consistent. We talk about that all the time, but really, really focusing on it comes later. And as you mentioned, personal branding is a huge, huge part of that.
And like you said too, like these things can somewhat happen out of order by chance and circumstance, right? You post something on SoundCloud, you blow up overnight. Now all of a sudden you're like, people are requesting you to play this song here or there or something, or hey, I want to reach out to you for sponsorship opportunities. But since you've already reached this point, you're still going to go back and hire a team. You're going to go back and be like, oh, what do I need to do now? Right.
Yeah.
So you're going to take that step back anyways. Right. So like, even if you do get to that point, like you were saying, like you're still going to return to these eventually.
Yeah.
Like, so that's why we put these, I think why we did. So
'Cause
like
the foundation is what
Exactly.
leads to success in the next layer.
Exactly.
Like you can, there's nothing saying you can't just bail the water out right away. If you're fast enough, like I said, if you're super fast, you can make the boat bone dry.
Yep.
But it's not going to stop leaking until you plug the hole.
Exactly.
So you can do all these opportunities, but you're not going to be set up for success and do it for a long time and not get burnt out and not be crushed without having a solid team or a solid foundation or knowing exactly what you stand for and all these things. And this is the next part of it.
Great way to say it. And on top of personal branding, I do want to mention just like additional professional development. Now that you have a team of people, we had professional development originally in this one, but I think Sean made the right move in moving it down a tier because you should be working that earlier. But I do want to mention that stays. And now with a team of people, you can develop further. Want to mention that real quick. The next one that we're looking at. Do you want to mention something?
I just want to dive more into personal branding.
Oh, okay. Sure.
How because I kind of cut you off before you fully dove into it.
Yeah.
And now it's just building a unique identity and presence in the industry. It's setting yourself forward. Because if you've not heard this before, what an artist is versus a capital A artist, a lowercase artist is about the music. A capital A artist is about them. They are the art. They are the artist. And that's, building a unique identity and presence in the industry relies on you, not just the music.
Absolutely.
It's what you stand for, what you do. It's different from all these people. Not necessarily, my song's different because I brought this influence in with this influence. Now, if it blows up, it gets popular, other people are going to do that with their music too, because now they're inspired by you. But no one is going to be you. No one can do what you do. And that's why we think of Taylor Swift before we think of any of her songs. We think of Beyonce before we think of any of her songs. We think of Insane Clown Posse. We think of Kiss. We think of any of these big bands, Harry Styles, David Bowie, Queen. They are the artist. They are, like when I mentioned all of those artists, there's some you immediately picture what they look like, what they stand for, what they act like, their whole persona around what they are. That's the point where we're focusing on at this point. Now it is developing you.
Yep. Absolutely.
Right, that's all.
No, that was great. That was great. And this development actually leads to our next thing, which is diversifying a stable source of income. At this point, you're probably making enough to survive in your life, right? That goes beyond music. But now you're like, okay, I want to diversify with multiple streams of revenue now. This is like talking about sponsorships. This goes beyond the music. This is sponsorships. This is touring. This is higher merch sales. This is different merch sales, I would say, doing like stuff that's unique to you, right? Like, for example, Taylor Swift has a song called Cardigan, so she released a cardigan as a merch thing, right? That's unique to her own brand because she has a song called that. Fans loved it. They loved it. Bought them like hotcakes, by the way. You can't get those anymore.
Well, even beyond that, it's because now she is an artist, she can sell herself as an artist.
Yep.
I mean, what was that? It was an insurance commercial where it was her in an elevator with all of her different eras. So now people aren't even paying for the rights to license her music. They want to license her.
Yep.
So now she's in these commercials. Now, if you're being paid this is really, really top tier, but if you're paid to play a Super Bowl, well, now like you are the halftime special.
Yeah.
And if you're paid to sponsor a certain product, like, hey, we want you to be our spokesperson. We want you to be on our billboards. We want you to do this. Now that you are a recognizable figure, you can, quote unquote, be sold as well, not just your music.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the power of defining yourself as an artist.
Absolutely.
So yeah, as you mentioned, now you can like the cardigan thing. You can do things like that because now it more relates to the music. But on top of your music, now you can sell yourself too.
It's great. It's great. You really establish yourself as, I wouldn't say an influencer, but just as like just a brand itself.
I would say an influence.
Influencer for sure. Yeah, for sure. I think it goes a little bit more than that, just in terms of now you are just who you are. That sounds really bad, but like you establish yourself as being that person people want to go to or want to hire for, like you said, the commercials or want to talk about this brand.
Well, you are a brand.
You are a brand.
And other brands want to use your brand.
You are your own brand at that point.
Yeah.
Yep. It's that. I mean, that within itself can take you a very long way.
Oh yeah.
Can take like in terms of like income.
Oh yeah. It can pay great.
Yes. There are dividends there. That also comes with a lot of PR stuff you should learn about with your team. So professional development. There you go. The next one, Recognition. You want to talk about that one?
Sure, why not? So another thing that you will achieve once you are an artist is recognition. You'll gain acknowledgement and respect within local, national, worldwide, our online communities, wherever it may be. You are now being noticed at greater than the scale that you have been so far. As we mentioned, if you're getting sponsorships or you're getting paid for commercials and whatnot, that means a large majority of people are recognizing what you are, what you stand for, or at least familiar with you. And the respect from these people is like other artists will now point to you as inspiration for their music or things like that. Or if you win an award show, the Grammys or whatnot, if you get nominated for that, or smaller awards, whatever it may be, your efforts, you as an artist, your music is now starting to get picked up, talked about, shared around, and put on a pedestal, quote unquote, that it wasn't before previously. You'll start to be recognized for your efforts.
Yep.
And here's the thing, recognition can come as a positive. Oh, you won a reward. Oh, this person's great. Oh, this person inspired me. Recognition also comes as criticism. Yeah. So don't be afraid if you start hearing people like, oh man, this song is shit. I like their old stuff better. This is bad. I can't believe people would listen to this. Like, that's going to come because they're recognizing that you are now doing stuff. If you don't do anything, if people aren't aware of you, then you're not going to get good or bad recognition. So the main problem that is now being overcome here is the problem of awareness, not necessarily whether people like you or not. If they're aware of you, that's a net positive.
Absolutely.
So you will be recognized positively. You will also be recognized negatively.
Yep.
Be aware of that.
Well said.
And it's okay. Don't listen to that.
Yep.
It's hard. Easier said than done.
Yeah.
But if you're doing stuff and people are pushing back, that's a good thing. And if you keep doing what you're doing, those people who criticize you and put you down, eventually they have to respect it because you're still doing it.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Which kind of leads to our next one that you kind of already touched on was achievements, right? The achievements along the way that set you up. That somewhat sets you up with recognitions, and then recognition can set you up for achievements. They kind of go hand in hand, weirdly enough. Yeah. But that's like receiving awards, receiving positive reviews or negative, depending on what you're looking at. That's not really an achievement unless you're going for that sort of thing. You're going for shock value. You're trying to be the anti-hero. That could be what you're going for. That's all up to you and your brand and your team. Or you're achieving personal milestones in your musical career.
Exactly. It's personal too.
Yeah. And it's very personal, very personal. Those two kind of go hand in hand. I don't know if I really need to go dive deeper into that.
You should dive deeper into like the more personal goals aspect of it. Because this is where...
Yeah, I guess it all depends on what you're trying to achieve within your music. So if you want to win a Grammy and you win a Grammy, congratulations. You just achieved what you wanted to in your personal music, right? Even as far as just being like, hey, I want to reach this many streams on this song, or I want to, do you have any examples?
Well, I'm more thinking of this as a separation from music. When you are the artist and you are developing, you have a team behind you and you're able to go and do all these crazy things. Now you can start expanding your goals kind of beyond this. People are helping you. People are taking care of you. You have a team put in place. You are achieving these things. Things are happening. So your goal is no longer, you can start implementing goals of like, okay, cool. I would like to be able to take 2 months of my time and just do my own thing and not have to relate to it. So I want to, build up enough stuff ahead of time, content or whatever, to post throughout that time period. But now my goal is to take a break. Or now
you're talking about like more so like almost musical career freedom.
Exactly. Now you have more of that career freedom. You can spend more time at home. Now you can, travel, whatever it may be. As this artist stage, there is more freedom now because you have, as I said, you have these things built up. You have this knowledge. You have these accolades. You are able to kind of not necessarily take it back. We're not done yet, but you can start implementing your own goals to help rejuvenate you to move forward and bring your lifestyle into what you're doing. I'd be like, oh, I want to move to this location. Oh, I want to build up this house or this, whatever it may be, you can grow on.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
So that's kind of what I was thinking of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. That actually propels us pretty good into the next one. Because if you're getting to that point, you're probably like, well, at this point, I'm I'm the biggest deal that there is right now, right?
Maybe not that point, but you're looking to get
You're
fulfilled.
getting pretty damn close. You know, you're on E-News or whatever, and you're getting talked about. And that's when you're really propelled into stardom. And then you can kind of do some other cool things with it. I'm not going to go into it right now, but we're going to say stardom and mentorship. So we'll get to the mentorship part, but stardom, we're here. We made it.
The top level, the top of the pyramid, the highest part of the hierarchy. You've done everything else below perfectly. The foundations are stacked. It's solid. Stardom and mentorship.
Yep. So now what? What can we do now? I mean, shit, we've done everything up to this point. That's great. Well, now you can do whatever the fuck you want. Honestly.
I love the way you're phrasing this, man.
Right?
You've gotten so aggressive.
I have. It's all because of the fucking go-giver, dude. It's given me something. This is where you have artistic freedom.
Complete freedom.
You can do whatever you want. You can argue that you have artistic freedom along the way. Sure, make the music that you want to make. But now you can make the music that you want to make and fans will be receptive of it. Or you can kind of like make music. I mean, I would say...
Okay.
I don't want to go too far because I'm going to talk through something that's not going to make sense. So you take it.
So I'm just going to give a example that works very well, for better or for worse. When you have full artistic freedom and you've built such a strong fan base and, you know, whatever it may be, for examples of someone who's reached that would be Kanye. And he's done and said and experienced and done so much after he's reached this level of stardom that at this point, no matter what he says, he'll have a career. Yeah. I'm not going to say he's untouchable because nobody is.
Right.
But he's hit that point where he can now express himself openly and fully and experiment different parts of his vision and change things and try things out. And there is a core of the fan base who will support him. There's now more security there. Yep. And now this necessarily could be, yes, it could be a good or a bad thing. If there's been any band that has gotten huge and all of a sudden they completely switch up what genre or the style they do music in. Yep. For example, like the band Rush.
Linkin Park.
Well, I was going to say with Rush in the 80s, they completely swapped from a three-piece rock and they started introducing a bunch of synths. Wasn't necessarily popular with their core fan base, but they were allowed to try these things because they had that foundation, they had that solid things that they wanted to incorporate new ideas and new stuff into their music. We brought it before. Taylor Swift, and Madonna, they've completely switched up their styles. She started as country, then more country pop, and she did a folk album, and that's completely different style, different kind of album, and people moved along with her because they want to experience that growth and that change alongside the artist. So now there is almost an aspect of there's a journey that they want to go along with, not just the music. They want to go along with you as an artist, which is why this comes after being an artist. They want to follow along the journey of you, not just of your music. Yep. So that's what we mean by kind of experiencing this artistic freedom is people following you, not just the songs.
That's fantastic. And you can't do that without impact and influence, right?
Correct.
So that's our next point.
One,
Thank you. Just means making a meaningful contribution to the music scene, the music industry, or influencing other listeners or artists along the way. And if you've been keeping tabs, you've kind of been doing that, but we're talking more grandiose things. I think a good example would be, we're going to talk about Jay-Z again here in a second, but I think Jay-Z in terms of like a political stance where Jay-Z's against courts being able to use lyrics in court cases and to be able from being able to pinpoint certain activities based on what you say in your music. That's the type of influence that we're kind of referring to here, is having a greater impact than just maybe on music or maybe music itself too. But we're talking about big, grandiose ideas here. Like Taylor Swift taking a stand against Spotify, right? That was one thing, even though I don't think she went as far as I think she should have. But that is like another case in point where you can stand up to this and make a change, stand up to a corporation and make a change.
If you want a really big one with her, as just her completely re-recording all of her songs.
Yes.
Her masters got bought out.
Now that's changed.
That's changed.
Yeah.
That's shook up the whole industry. Now, labels are starting to put in shittier terms in their contracts because they're trying to fight people from doing that. And artists are now like, oh crap, well, I can just redo my stuff and I can get all my royalties back if people listen to my versions versus the other versions. Completely change up. That's a level of influence and impact that cannot exist until you reach that level of stardom.
Yep, absolutely.
And beyond that, not only can you make impact in like a short term, this impacts the music industry for a long time, that specific example. But also, as you mentioned, like the whole Jay-Z and like the Young Thug and the trials, and like not wanting to use lyrics as in a court, that affects life for musicians.
That's like real life.
For decades. That is starting to create a legacy. That is longevity in the impact that is being made. It's establishing a lasting presence and influence in this industry. And that's necessarily beyond financial success. You can start creating impact and longevity. You can bring on artists that exist past you. The reason Brandon brought up Jay-Z earlier and said we would get back to him is because he does a phenomenal job of bringing new artists up. He's been, when he started, he brought people along with him, and now he's bringing people up to kind of succeed him, or not succeed, supersede him. Succeed is to leave something, supersede is to go on past it. So now he's building up a, what's the word? Legacy. Because, well, he's got these artists that exist and make music that were given that chance through him. So once you get to that point of being, really big, now you can start giving back to music in that way of not just inspiring other artists, but playing a huge role in mentoring them and bringing them through the whole process and give them a hand. If it's something you really, really believe in.
Yeah, and we're referring to the legacy that they leave, like more so outside of music at this point, but also maybe like the grandiose ideas. I keep going back to that because you could argue like, oh, Jay-Z's one of the best rappers that has ever lived. Of course he has a legacy. That's not really what we're talking about. He's already cemented that in music history. We're talking about these grand scale things where you can do whatever you want at this point, or you can stand up for whatever you want. You can change whatever you want. So I want to drive that home one last time for people to understand, because I could hear people, of course Jay-Z's legacy, like, yes, I know, but we're talking about beyond the music like somewhat at this point, right?
Well, also beyond the music is all the other business opportunities. Like a lot of times when people get this big, they become business people in addition to being artists. Beats by Dre. Dre's another artist who's done this, he's expanded into being a businessman. I know 50 Cent's done this. He's got a lot of companies. But Dr. Dre, well, now Beats is a huge brand that a lot of artists use in their music creation process. It is now a logo that people instantly recognize, that could breed inspiration, gives that sense of, because of the Dr. Dre name behind it, it breeds the sense, it has a brand to it all of its own that can inspire people to try new things, do things, or use it as a tool to help them in their lives. That's a legacy in upon itself. So once you get to that point, now you can start branching out completely outside of music.
I mean, that's like Kanye with Adidas, when he had the Adidas contract, or when he had the Gap contract, right? He was starting to expand outside of that and go into more clothing territory. Or Rihanna, that has like her own makeup brand and stuff like that. Just a couple of different like kind of cases to kind of showcase that.
Exactly. So yeah, this is the part where music is still incredibly important, but now you're able to do things outside of it. And not only can you do things outside of it, because you're an artist, you're recognizable, you have the stardom, but you can also have the ability to bring other people up because you're respected. You've contributed so much to music that now you can bring other people up with you and show them the ropes and build the way and influence and inspire other people. This is the real level of what is the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is fulfillment, self-actualization and fulfillment. This is the point where it's like, okay, you can really be fulfilled at this point, because now it's no longer just for you. It's no longer about you as an artist. You can really start using that influence to help others and be fulfilled in that way. And honestly, everyone's different, but I personally believe that being able to assist others and build other people up and make them feel better, that is one of the most fulfilling things.
Absolutely.
And with this level of influence, this level of stardom, there's so much good that you can do, so many things that you can try, so many things that you can start playing into. So this is like the top tier.
This is top tier. I mean, just us talking about Jay-Z, talk about Rihanna, talking about Kanye, shows the industry respect, right? We're demonstrating that right now because we look up to them, right? They've done this. We know that they're tried and true in what they've done. Maybe not Kanye at this point, but definitely Jay-Z and Rihanna. But to each their own, right?
But the level of impact cannot be debated.
I mean, we're literally demonstrating that point right now. I wanted to bring that up, break the fourth wall.
At this point, any sort of historical figure, anyone that hits that level, there's going to be people who love them and people who that hate them, whatever popular opinion says. And at that point, they're still being talked about. What's the saying? There's no such thing as bad press.
Yeah.
Because if people are talking to you and they're aware of you, they're aware of you.
Exactly.
And the people that do like you and want to support you are now aware that, and they can and they will. So just want to say that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Regardless of anyone's opinions on anybody we've talked about in this episode, or we'll talk about in future episodes, the fact that we are talking about them is a objective fact that they have a level of stardom and influence.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Totally agree.
I'm sure you could have.
Nope.
You're a smart man.
Nope.
You could totally do
Couldn't
it.
have done it.
Yes, you could.
Nope.
Yep.
Nope.
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 I tried Bugs Bunny.
I know you did.
I tried Bugs Bunny.
I know you did. I saw that.
But yeah, that's the hierarchy of needs.
Yeah. I mean, wow. I mean, I'm impressed because you know, it was like when we were kind of cultivating this, like kind of going back to what we said at the beginning is I was trying to adhere to what the original Maslow's hierarchy needs was, and it was just confusing the shit out of me.
Yeah.
But as we move through it, it really shows the gradient of the trajectory of a career, right? Which is really cool. The shade, I've colored it on my iPad because I'm a kid and I like to color things.
No, that's brilliant.
And I like at the top was red, and you kind of saw like the colors start shifting in that direction on the way up. And I think that when I go to make, you know, a piece of content for this episode, I will do the same thing. You know, I'll use a nice shade of gradient that goes up along the way because it really is linear. Of course, not everything's the trajectory of the pyramid's linear, not a career, right?
Yes.
But like if you really spell it out, it shows that this leads to that, and then now the colors are changed. I don't know. I don't know what the fuck I'm trying to say anymore, Sean.
No, there are stepping stones.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess peek behind the curtains. Brandon and I first tried to record this at episode 27.
There's a lost episode out there.
There is. We took episode 27 and it's a similar concept, but we more focused on what that was about.
Yeah.
And we decided, we need to take time and actually develop this and put more effort into building this hierarchy because it can be a really powerful visualization tool. Once again, as Brandon said, he's making a blog post or some sort of content based on it. I'm doing the same thing. We'll be posting the image on our social media platforms, Instagram, if you want to check that out, Facebook. So, you know, please find us on any social media platform that you use, like us, follow us, share, subscribe, whatever it may be, really helps us help other musicians, other independent artists like you. But being able to visualize and see it is just a huge help. And it really does showcase that. And if you haven't looked at, please go find it and download it. The links are in the description. But seeing like, okay, this is the progression. These are natural steps. Now, as we mentioned, success is different for everybody. There are different things that you could identify as this is my end goal. Maybe you don't want to get all the way to stardom. And that's why we also put down mentorship in there. Once you're a full artist, you don't necessarily have to be the biggest thing since sliced bread. But if you're able to then take that knowledge and then teach others and become that mentor moving forward, that's half of the final step. And that can be your full final thing. That can be your end goal, your full level of being able to take what you've done and bring other people up with you. Find bands you like and let them open for you. Or even if it's like a smaller show, you're then aiding to their career. And that's such a huge aspect of it.
Yep.
So depending on what your goals are and how it works out, this is still the trajectory of finding success and turning it into a career and making a living doing what you love in this industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we said, if we forgot anything or you thought anything of anything along the way, please let us know. We'd love to add it to the pyramid. We will revise this until we have everything in here. And even then we might not have everything. So things change. Yeah. Things happen.
And you can message us at podcast@musicmakerscookbook.com.
And if you want to argue with us that one spot should be lower or whatever, we'd love to hear it. We want to refine this and make sure that it's as accurate as possible and as up to date. So let us know. But this is what we thought.
Exactly.
Hopefully you like it. That was such a wishy-washy thing to say.
I hope you like it.
Hope you like it.
Please. You're going to like it, damn it. Thank you for cooking in today with us. This was a
hefty meal.
This was a hefty meal. This was fun to eat in with you.
5-course meal.
Man, that is good. It's 5 tiers of it. 5-course meal. Man, I'm going to use that for the social post for Brandon. Yeah. I'm going to try to remember that shit. We should label that for the podcast episode title. He's doing it right now. But anyways, yes, thank you for dining in with us. Thank you for listening. If you've gone this far, especially since the past 5 minutes where I was just kind of rambling on about it.
Honestly,
we really appreciate everyone who listens to this. We're almost at the year's end. This is episode 30 that's coming out. We've got some awesome things coming next year. So as I said, follow, like, subscribe. Really, we got some awesome things coming next year.
We have our first interview coming.
We do. That's going to be really exciting. So stay tuned for that. And with all that being said, thanks for dining in with us.
Bon appetit.